You black African cow, who let you in here?
Heritage National Bank. A branch manager named Todd Whitmore is holding a $10 million certified check, and he's laughing in the face of the black woman who brought it in. Denise didn't flinch.
I'd watch your mouth. I need to deposit this.
She set her ID on the counter and looked him dead in the eye.
Call your 10 Ferry National, sir, to see
Todd held the check up to the light, then slowly wiped the bottom of his shoe with it, back and forth, like cleaning dirt off his soul.
Feels about right. Paper from your kind always ends up on the ground anyway.
The lobby went silent. Denise didn't blink, just watched him dig his own grave, one word at a time. Nobody knew who she was. What happened next didn't just end Todd's career. It shook an entire bank to its foundation. Whew, buckle up, because what this rich mother did next, that was just the beginning. Let me tell you about Denise Caldwell Harper. Because what Todd Whitmore did in that lobby, he had no idea who he was talking to. Denise grew up on the south side of Ridgemont Heights. Same neighborhood, same cracked sidewalks, same corner store that still sells Lucy's behind the counter. Her grandmother, Ruth Caldwell, raised her in a 2-bedroom brownstone 3 blocks from that bank. Ruth worked 2 jobs, housekeeper during the day, hospital laundry at night. She saved every dollar she could. And in 1971, she walked into Heritage National Bank to open a savings account. They turned her away, told her they weren't accepting her kind of deposits. Ruth never went back. But she kept that rejection in a shoebox under her bed until the day she died. Denise found it when she was 17. A handwritten note on Heritage National letterhead. 2 sentences. Account application denied. Applicant does not meet branch requirements. That note changed Denise's life. She put herself through college on scholarships and part-time jobs, got her MBA at Wharton, spent 12 years on Wall Street learning how money really moves. Then she did something nobody expected. She came home, back to Ridgemont Heights. She took everything she'd learned and built Caldwell Capital Group from a 1-room office above a barber shop. 20 years later, that company manages $2.3 billion. Not in oil, not in tech stocks, in communities, affordable housing, small business loans, health clinics in neighborhoods that banks like Heritage National had abandoned decades ago. Forbes profiled her twice. She'd shaken hands with a former Secretary of Commerce. But if you saw her on the street, you'd never know. That was the point. Denise didn't wear designer labels. No Gucci, no Louis Vuitton. She wore linen blazers and white tees. Her watch was her grandmother's, a thin gold band, scratched and faded. She drove a 10-year-old Volvo with a dent in the rear bumper. She didn't need anyone to see her wealth. She needed them to see her work. The morning of the deposit, Denise stood in her kitchen, Ruth's kitchen, the same brownstone, the same percolator on the counter, and stared at a photograph on the wall. Ruth, 1971, standing outside Heritage National Bank, young, proud, turned away. Denise picked up the phone and called Pat. "I'm making this deposit in person, at that branch." Pat Okonkwo, her chief of staff, knew better than to argue. But she had concerns. "I checked the reviews last night. 3 stars, multiple complaints. One customer said the manager made her cry over a wire transfer." "Good," Denise said. "Then they need this money more than they know." The deposit wasn't random. $10 million, the anchor for a community development fund, affordable housing, small business grants, a new clinic. Denise had chosen Heritage National specifically because it still had branches in underserved neighborhoods. She wanted her money working locally, in the same zip code where her grandmother scrubbed floors. Pat picked her up at 9. In the car, Pat set her phone on the dashboard mount. She always recorded in professional settings, a habit from her consulting days. Just in case, she said. She'd been saying that for 6 years. It had never mattered before. As they pulled into the Heritage National parking lot, Denise noticed a small security camera above the entrance. She mentioned it to Pat. Good, at least they've got cameras. She said it like a passing thought, like it meant nothing. But Denise Caldwell Harper never said anything that meant nothing. She walked through those doors, expecting a transaction, a simple deposit, maybe a handshake from the manager. She had no idea she was about to relive her grandmother's nightmare, 53 years later, in the exact same building. Denise and Pat walked into Heritage National at 9:15. The lobby smelled like carpet cleaner and old coffee. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. A few customers waited in line. Normal Monday morning. A teller named Janelle Washington looked up from her screen and smiled. Warm, professional. Good morning. How can I help you today? Denise smiled back. I'd like to open a commercial account and make a large deposit. Janelle took the check. Her eyes widened for just a second. $10 million. But she kept her composure. Of course, ma'am. For a deposit this size, I'll need to bring in our branch manager. Standard procedure for anything over $100,000. Give me just a moment. Janelle picked up the phone. Denise heard her say, Mr. Whitmore, I have a client at the counter with a significant deposit. Could you come out, please? Pat set her phone on the counter, screen down, mic facing out. She'd done this 100 times. Nobody ever noticed. Nobody ever needed to. Until today. Todd Whitmore came around the corner like he owned the building. Navy suit, American flag lapel pin, signet ring, hair slicked back like he'd just stepped out of a board meeting he was never invited to. He walked with the kind of authority that came not from earning respect, but from assuming it. He looked at Janelle, then at Pat, then at Denise. His eyes went from her face to her sneakers, from her linen jacket to her natural silver locks. He didn't extend his hand, didn't introduce himself. This yours? He nodded at the check on the counter. It is, Denise said. Certified. Issued by First Continental. Todd picked it up, held it between 2 fingers like it smelled. He turned it over, held it up to the fluorescent light, squinted at it the way you'd squint at a counterfeit bill from a street vendor. ID. Not, may I see your ID? Not, could you verify your identity? Just ID. Denise placed her driver's license on the counter, then her passport, then the Articles of Incorporation for Caldwell Capital Group. 3 forms of identification, more than any deposit requires. Todd studied each one. Slowly. He held the passport up to the light, too. Compared the photo to her face, back and forth, like he was playing a game. Then, he set everything down and crossed his arms. Ma'am, I'm going to need to run additional verification. Checks like this, from people like you, we see a lot of fraud. From people like you. Denise's jaw tightened, but her voice stayed level. It's a certified cashier's check. You can verify it with 1 phone call to First Continental. Todd leaned forward, close enough that she could smell his cologne. I'll decide what's necessary in my branch. Behind the counter, Janelle's hands had stopped moving. Her eyes were locked on Todd. This wasn't the first time she'd seen him do this. She'd watched it happen to a black business owner last month, a Latino couple the month before. Always the same tone, always the same look. But she'd never seen him do what he did next. Todd looked at the check one more time. Then he looked at Denise. And what he did next, every single person in that lobby would remember for the rest of their lives. He took the check, lifted his right foot onto the edge of the counter, and wiped the paper across the bottom of his shoe. Heel to toe. Slow. Deliberate. Like he was polishing leather with a rag. Then he held it up. A dirty shoe print smeared across $10 million. And said, "You black African cow. Who let you in here?" Denise didn't move. "Feels about right," Todd continued, tossing the check onto the counter. "Paper from your kind always ends up on the ground anyway." The lobby froze. A woman near the door covered her mouth. An older man in a golf shirt looked at his shoes. Janelle gripped the edge of her keyboard so hard her knuckles turned white. Nobody spoke. Nobody intervened. That's the part that hurts the most, isn't it? Not just the man who does it, but the room full of people who watch it happen. Todd wasn't done. He straightened his tie, cleared his throat, and announced, loud enough for every corner of the lobby to hear, "I'm placing a fraud hold on this check. Ma'am, you'll need to leave the premises while we investigate." He reached for the check like he was going to confiscate it. Denise's hand came down on the counter first. Firm. Not aggressive, just there. "You're not taking my check, and you're not placing a hold on a certified instrument without calling the issuing bank. That's not procedure. That's harassment." Something shifted in Todd's face. He hadn't expected that. Women who looked like Denise, in his mind, were supposed to shrink, supposed to apologize, supposed to leave quietly and cry in the parking lot. That was the script he was used to. Denise wasn't reading from his script. Todd's neck turned red. He leaned in closer. "I'm the manager of this branch. I decide what happens in here, not you." "Then manage it properly," Denise said. "One phone call, First Continental. They'll verify the check in 30 seconds. Todd ignored her. He turned to the lobby and snapped his fingers at a young security guard standing near the entrance. "Darnell, come here." Darnell walked over slowly. He was 24, ex-military. He could read a room better than most people read books. And everything in this room was telling him the same thing. Something was very wrong, and it wasn't the woman with the check. "Escort these women out," Todd said. "This is a fraud situation." Darnell looked at Denise. Denise looked at Darnell. She didn't plead, didn't explain, just held his gaze with the quiet confidence of someone who'd been underestimated her entire life and had stopped caring about it a long time ago. Darnell turned back to Todd. "Sir, has the check been verified?" "That's not your concern." "With respect, sir, if there's no verified fraud, I can't remove a customer from the—" "I said escort them out, now." The lobby was watching. A young Latina woman near the window had her phone raised, not hiding it, recording. The older man in the golf shirt shifted in his seat, uncomfortable but silent. A mother near the ATM pulled her daughter behind her, whispering something about not getting involved. Pat stepped forward, phone in hand, visible. She looked at Todd and spoke clearly, calmly, like she was reading a legal document into the record. "My name is Patricia Okonkwo. I'm Chief of Staff to Denise Caldwell Harper, founder and CEO of Caldwell Capital Group. This deposit is part of a community reinvestment initiative personally coordinated with your CEO, Russell Avery. I am requesting that you contact Mr. Avery's office immediately." Todd stared at her. Then he laughed, a real laugh, not nervous, genuine amusement, like a man who just heard the funniest joke of his life. "Sure, honey. And I'm the Secretary of the Treasury." He turned to Darnell. "Get them out. Both of them. I'm done playing games." Darnell didn't move. Pat was already dialing. Not 911, not a lawyer, not the police. She was calling the one number Todd Whitmore should have prayed she didn't have. And on the other end of that line, Russell Avery, CEO of Heritage National Bank, picked up on the second ring. Pat pressed the speaker button. She didn't ask permission. She didn't need to. Russell Avery's voice came through clear and sharp, deep, commanding. The kind of voice you hear once and never forget. Every branch manager in Heritage National's system knew that voice. They heard it on quarterly calls, on training videos, on the company-wide voicemail that played every January. "Denise, is everything all right with the deposit?" Todd's smile disappeared. Not slowly, all at once. Like someone had reached into his face and pulled it off. Denise leaned toward the phone. Calm. Measured. Every word precise. "Russell, I'm at your Ridgemont Heights branch. Your manager has refused my deposit. He subjected me to an unauthorized fraud hold. He wiped my check across the bottom of his shoe. He called me a..." She paused, just long enough. "Well, you'll hear it on the recording. And right now, he's trying to have me removed by security." Silence on the line. 3 seconds. 5 seconds. The entire lobby held its breath. Then Russell spoke. 2 words. Cold as steel. "Put him on." Pat held the phone out toward Todd. His hand was shaking when he took it. The signet ring on his finger caught the fluorescent light. His mouth opened, but nothing came out. Russell didn't wait. "Todd, do you know who you're talking to? Denise Caldwell Harper, Caldwell Capital Group. She's one of the most significant depositors we've courted in 3 years. Her firm manages $2.3 billion. $2.3 billion. And you wiped her check on your shoe?" Todd found his voice. Barely. "Sir, I was following fraud prevention Don't." Russell's voice dropped lower. "Don't you dare finish that sentence. I've seen the protocols. Nowhere in any manual does it say to humiliate a client in front of your entire branch. You stay right where you are. Don't touch that check. Don't speak to Miss Caldwell Harper. Don't speak to anyone. I'm sending someone from corporate right now." The line went dead. Todd stood there, holding Pat's phone like it was a grenade. His face had gone from red to white. The signet ring, the lapel pin, the slicked back hair. None of it mattered now. He looked like a man who just realized the floor underneath him had been gone for a while, and he was only now starting to fall. Darnell stepped back quietly. Janelle exhaled behind the counter. The older man in the golf shirt stared at his hands. And the young Latina woman near the window? She'd recorded everything. From the moment Todd wiped his shoe to the moment Russell Avery's voice filled the lobby. Every word, every frame. She posted it before Denise and Pat even left the building. The caption was simple. "Bank manager wipes $10 million check on his shoe because the client is black." Within 20 minutes, 200,000 views. Within an hour, 1.2 million. By that evening, 11 million people had watched Todd Whitmore destroy his career in real time. But the video was just the beginning. Because what nobody had found yet, the internal emails, the buried complaints, the pattern that went back years, that was about to blow the doors wide open. 6 hours after the video dropped, Heritage National Bank released a statement. 3 paragraphs, carefully worded, Approved by legal. We are aware of an incident at our Ridgemont Heights location and are conducting an internal review. Heritage National is committed to serving all customers with dignity and respect. We will take appropriate action based on the findings of our investigation. Read that again. No mention of Todd. No mention of what he did. No mention of the shoe. No mention of the slur. No apology. Just an incident. Like a spilled coffee. Like a parking lot fender bender. The internet wasn't having it. Within hours, the hashtag #ShoeCheckChallenge was trending nationwide. People posted videos of themselves wiping checks on their shoes, holding them up to the camera and asking, "Is this how you verify a deposit at Heritage National?" A comedian with 8 million followers did a skit in a fake bank lobby. A civil rights attorney posted a breakdown of every federal law Todd Whitmore violated in under 4 minutes. A former bank examiner went on cable news and said, on live television, "That man didn't follow any protocol I've ever seen. What he followed was his prejudice." But here's how this always works. You know it, I know it. The moment a black woman stands up for herself, the machine starts spinning the other way. The counter-narrative showed up right on schedule. Comment sections filled with the usual poison. We don't know the full story. What if the check really was fake? She should have dressed more professionally. Why didn't she just go to another branch? Always the same playbook. Always blaming the person who got hurt instead of the person who did the hurting. 12 hours after the video, Todd Whitmore's lawyer released a statement. Todd was following standard fraud prevention protocols. The shoe gesture was testing a security feature of the check paper. The situation had been taken out of context by social media. Banking experts tore that apart in minutes. Certified cashier's checks don't have ink rub security features. There is no shoe test in any fraud manual ever written. The explanation was a lie, and everyone with 5 minutes and a search engine could prove it. But Heritage National wasn't done protecting itself. And this is the part that should make your blood boil. The next morning, Janelle Washington, the teller, the one who smiled at Denise, the one who did everything right, the one who processed hundreds of large deposits without a single error, Janelle was placed on administrative leave. Not Todd, Janelle. The official reason? Pending investigation into whether proper procedures were followed at the counter. But Janelle hadn't made a mistake. She hadn't violated a single policy. She'd done her job exactly the way she was trained to do it. The real reason was simpler and uglier. Janelle had been talking to a journalist. Someone from the Ridgemont Chronicle had reached out to her the night the video went viral, asked her if she'd seen things like this before, asked if she'd be willing to share what she knew. Janelle hadn't answered yet. She was still thinking about it. But somehow Heritage National found out about the call, and instead of disciplining the man who humiliated a customer on camera, they punished the woman who was thinking about telling the truth. That night, Janelle sat in her apartment, small place, 1 bedroom, photos of her 6-year-old daughter on the refrigerator. She called her mother and tried to hold it together. She almost made it. "Mama, I did everything right. Everything. And they're punishing me for it." Her voice cracked. "Because I was going to tell the truth. That's it. That's all I did." Her mother said what mothers say, that she was proud of her, that the truth always wins, that God sees everything. But Janelle wasn't so sure. Because from where she was sitting, it looked like the only people getting punished were the ones who didn't do anything wrong. Now, the journalist Janelle had been talking to, his name was Derek Hollins, investigative reporter, 14 years at the Ridgemont Chronicle, And what Janelle didn't know yet was that Derek had been building a file on Heritage National Bank for 2 years. Todd Whitmore wasn't the disease. He was just the most visible symptom. And Derek was about to show the world exactly how deep the infection went.
Derek Hollins had a rule: never publish until the evidence is so heavy that denial collapses under its own weight. He'd been following that rule for 2 years. Building, collecting, waiting. The Denise Caldwell Harper video wasn't his story. It was the door that finally opened his story. Derek's file on Heritage National Bank started with a tip from a former employee in 2022, a compliance officer who'd been fired after raising concerns internally. That tip led to a public records request. That request led to data. And that data told a story that no PR statement could spin away. Here's what Derek found. Black customers at Heritage National branches were 3.4 times more likely to have their deposits flagged for additional verification than white customers making identical transactions. Same amounts, same account types, same documentation. The only difference was the face behind the counter. Latino customers? 2.7 times more likely. This wasn't one branch. This was system-wide. 14 branches across 3 states, thousands of transactions, years of data. The pattern was so consistent, it couldn't be coincidence. It couldn't be a few bad employees. It was policy, even if nobody wrote it down. Except somebody did write it down. In March 2022, Heritage National's regional management sent an internal memo to all branch managers. Derek had a copy. The language was careful, the kind of careful that lawyers craft when they want to say something illegal without technically saying it. Branch managers are encouraged to exercise heightened scrutiny on accounts that present atypical risk profiles. Factors to consider include transaction history, account age, and client presentation.
Client presentation. Read that phrase again. Client presentation. That's not a banking term. There's no definition for it in any compliance manual. It doesn't refer to documents or credit scores or account balances. It refers to how someone looks when they walk through the door. And in practice, at every branch Derek investigated, atypical risk profile meant one thing: black or brown skin. But the memo was just the foundation. What Derek built on top of it was devastating. He pulled the complaint records for every Heritage National branch in the Ridgemont region. And there, buried in filing cabinets and internal databases that nobody ever expected a journalist to see, he found Todd Whitmore's history. 6 complaints. 6. Over 4 years. Complaint 1. A black business owner named Raymond Foster tried to wire $50,000 to a supplier. Todd flagged the transaction for verification. Raymond waited 4 hours. When he went to a different Heritage National branch the next day, the same wire cleared in 10 minutes. Complaint 2. A Latino couple, the Garcias, applied for a mortgage through Todd's branch. Their application was lost. They resubmitted. Lost again. Third time, they were told their income documentation was insufficient. Their combined household income was $140,000. They had perfect credit. Complaint 3. A black college student named Tasha Williams deposited a scholarship check for $12,000. Todd froze her account for 11 days. The scholarship office had to intervene directly. Complaints 4, 5, and 6. Similar patterns, different faces, same outcome. Every single complaint was investigated internally by Heritage National's compliance department. Every single one was dismissed. No discipline, no retraining, no note in Todd's personnel file. Nothing. 6 people walked into that bank and were treated like criminals because of how they looked. 6 people filed formal complaints. 6 times the system looked at what happened and said, "This is fine." And then there was the money trail. Derek dug into the branch-level financial data and found something that made the discrimination not just cruel, but calculated. Heritage National's Ridgemont Heights branch sat in a majority-minority zip code. 63% Black, 21% Latino. But the branch's premium services, wealth management, investment accounts, priority lending, were overwhelmingly directed to a small, predominantly white clientele in the same area. Account fees for Black customers averaged 31% higher than fees for white customers with similar balances. Loan approval rates for Black applicants were 42% lower. The branch had the lowest community reinvestment score in Heritage National's entire system, dead last out of 112 branches. But it had the highest risk flag rate in the company, 3 times the national average. And Todd Whitmore was proud of it. In a 2023 performance review, which Derek also obtained, Todd's supervisor praised his vigilant approach to risk management. Vigilant. That's what they called it. Vigilant. Derek organized everything: the memo, the complaints, the data, the money trail, the performance reviews. Time-stamped, sourced, cross-referenced. 2 years of work laid out like a prosecution brief. Then he called Denise. She agreed to meet the same day. They sat across from each other in a coffee shop 3 blocks from the bank. Derek laid out what he had. Denise listened without interrupting. When he finished, she was quiet for a long time. Then she said something Derek would never forget. "My grandmother walked into that bank in 1971. They turned her away. I walked in last week. They wiped their shoes with my money." She paused. "I didn't come back to get revenge, Derek. I came back to prove things had changed. They haven't. So now, we change them." That afternoon, Denise's legal team began preparing formal complaints to the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency and the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. But someone inside Heritage National had been watching. And they were about to make sure all of this disappeared. Or at least, they were going to try. The system doesn't fight you with fists. It fights you with phone calls. Quiet ones. The kind nobody can trace. The kind that sound polite but carry threats in every syllable. 3 days after Denise met with Derek, Heritage National's legal team sent a cease and desist letter to the Ridgemont Chronicle. 14 pages. The internal memos Derek had obtained were stolen proprietary documents. Publishing them would constitute misappropriation of trade secrets. The bank was prepared to pursue all available legal remedies. The Chronicle's parent company, a mid-size media group that had been cutting costs for 5 straight years, got nervous. Legal battles cost money. Money they didn't have. Derek's editor called him into the office and told him the story was being paused. Not killed, paused. Pending legal review. Derek knew what paused meant. It meant buried. It meant the same thing Heritage National had done to 6 complaints and 1 compliance officer. Make it disappear. Wait for the news cycle to move on. Let the silence do the work. But the cease and desist was just the beginning. Denise's other banking relationships started shifting.
2 partner banks that had committed funding for the Community Development Initiative suddenly needed additional time to finalize their positions. A third sent a letter citing reputational considerations and requesting a meeting to reassess the partnership. Somebody was making calls. Denise couldn't prove who. But in a world where a handful of executives play golf together every Saturday, she didn't need a phone record to connect the dots. Then it got personal. A social media campaign appeared overnight. Coordinated, professional. The kind that doesn't come from angry strangers. It comes from a firm that gets paid to destroy reputations. The narrative was simple. Denise Caldwell Harper was a race-baiting activist who had staged the incident for publicity. She was exploiting racial tension for personal gain. She was the real bully in that lobby. A doctored version of the lobby video started circulating. Edited. The shoe wiping was cut out. Todd's slur was removed. What remained made it look like Denise had walked in, caused a scene, and refused to cooperate with a routine fraud check. The edited video got 4 million views in 2 days. Pat started receiving messages. Anonymous. Her home address listed in the text. We know where you work. Drop this, or we drop you. She changed her locks that night and slept with the lights on. Janelle's landlord called her the next week. After 6 years in the same apartment, he suddenly needed to sell the building. She had 30 days to vacate. No negotiation, no extension. Janelle had a 6-year-old daughter and nowhere to go. And Denise? Denise sat in her grandmother's kitchen at 2 a.m. The same kitchen, the same table, the same cracked tile floor Ruth used to mop every Sunday after church. The percolator was cold. The house was quiet. She held the photograph from 1971. Ruth, standing outside Heritage National, young, proud, turned away. And for the first time in this entire story, Denise cried. Not the kind of crying you do when you're sad, the kind you do when you're exhausted from fighting a war that your grandmother fought, and your mother fought, and you're fighting, in the same building, against the same walls, 53 years later. The kind of crying that comes from the bones. She sat there for a long time. Then she picked up the phone and called Pat. They want me to be tired. They want me to stop. Her voice was raw, scraped. And I am tired, Pat. I am so tired. Silence on the line. Then Denise said something Pat would carry with her forever. But tired and done are 2 different things. She didn't know it yet. But the thing that would turn everything around was already sitting in someone's inbox. And that someone had just lost her apartment, her job, and the last reason she had to stay quiet. Janelle Washington had nothing left to lose. And that made her the most dangerous person in this story. Janelle sat on the floor of her apartment, surrounded by moving boxes. Her daughter was asleep in the next room. The eviction notice was on the kitchen counter. Her termination letter was on top of it. 2 pieces of paper that erased 6 years of perfect work and 6 years of paying rent on time. She opened her laptop and stared at the screen. For 3 years, Janelle had been CC'd on internal emails as the senior teller at the Ridgemont Heights branch. She never asked for them. They just came. Branch communications, staff memos, account flagging reports, Todd's messages to regional management about suspicious activity at the counter. She'd saved them all. Not because she was planning anything. Because Janelle was organized. She kept records. She kept receipts. It's just who she was. But tonight, sitting on that floor, with her life in boxes, she read through those emails with different eyes. There it was, in black and white. Email after email, where Todd described the customers he'd flagged.
and every single description included the same detail. Not account type, not transaction history, not documentation issues. Race. Every time. Black male, mid-40s, presenting a cashier's check for $50,000. Flagged for additional verification. Hispanic couple, late 30s, applying for mortgage. Recommended extended review of income documentation. Black female, early 20s, depositing scholarship check. Account flagged for suspected fraud. Never once, not in a single email, did Todd flag a white customer. Not one. Hundreds of transactions, dozens of flags, and every face behind every flag was black or brown. Janelle closed her laptop, opened it again, closed it. Her hands were shaking. Then she picked up her phone and called Derek Hollins. "I have everything," she said. "Emails, headers, timestamps, metadata, 3 years of it. And I'll give you my written statement too. Every incident I saw with my own eyes, 14 of them, I counted." Derek was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Janelle, once you do this, there's no going back. You understand that? I'm sleeping on the floor of an apartment I'm being kicked out of because I was thinking about telling the truth. There's nothing left to go back to." Derek met her the next morning. She gave him everything. He verified the email headers. Authentic, unaltered, time-stamped and routed through Heritage National's internal server. No lawyer in the world could claim they were fabricated, but Janelle wasn't the only one who'd had enough. 2 days later, a woman named Sandra Layton called a press conference. Sandra was 57, gray-haired, quiet. The kind of person who spent 30 years in corporate compliance because she believed the rules meant something. Sandra had been vice president of compliance at Heritage National. Past tense. She was fired in 2023. The termination letter said, "cultural fit." 2 words that meant nothing and everything at the same time. The real reason? Sandra had filed 3 internal reports flagging discriminatory patterns in Heritage National's flagging and lending practices. 3 reports. Each one backed by data. Each one sent to senior leadership. Each one ignored. After the 3rd report, Sandra was called into a meeting with Heritage National's general counsel. The meeting lasted 11 minutes. She was told her approach to compliance was not aligned with the company's strategic direction. She was escorted from the building that afternoon. Now, Sandra stood in front of cameras and laid it all out. The reports she filed, the responses she received, or didn't receive, her termination letter, and a single sentence that cut through every corporate excuse Heritage National had ever made. "I told them what was happening. I showed them the numbers. They chose not to see it." That's not negligence. That's a decision. The story was no longer about Todd Whitmore. It was about the machine that built Todd Whitmore, the system that trained him, rewarded him, protected him, and fired anyone who pointed out what he was doing. And then the dam broke. Former Heritage National customers started coming forward, one by one, then by the dozen. A retired black school teacher denied a home equity loan despite a perfect credit score and 40 years of on-time mortgage payments. A black veteran whose GI Bill deposit was held for investigation for 11 days, while his rent came due. A mixed-race couple told they didn't qualify for a small business loan, only to watch a white applicant with a lower credit score get approved the same afternoon. Derek had his story. Data, memos, emails, testimony, footage, expert analysis, a pattern stretching back years. exposed from every angle. But Denise wasn't waiting for the article. She called a press conference of her own. She didn't stand behind a podium. She stood in front of her grandmother's brownstone. Same block, same sidewalk, same cracked steps. She announced the formation of the Caldwell Community Trust. $25 million. Dedicated to providing banking services, small business loans, and financial literacy programs to communities that institutions like Heritage National had abandoned. And she was pulling every dollar she had from Heritage National, every cent, redirecting it to 3 Black-owned community banks. She looked into the cameras and said, "You wiped your shoe on my check. I'm going to build something you can never step on." That clip alone got 9 million views overnight. But the real earthquake was coming, because the next morning, the OCC opened its formal investigation. Heritage National stock dropped 8% before the markets even opened. And Russell Avery, the CEO who'd said, "You're done," on the phone, realized this wasn't a brush fire anymore. This was an inferno, and it was heading straight for him. Denise lit the match. The internet poured gasoline. Within 24 hours of her press conference, the hashtag #BankBlack was everywhere. Not just trending, exploding. Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, every platform, every demographic. People who had never heard of Denise Caldwell Harper were sharing her clip, tagging their banks, and asking one question: where is my money really going? And then something happened that nobody, not Heritage National, not the media, not even Denise, expected. Other people started moving their money. A prominent Black tech founder in Atlanta posted a screenshot of a wire transfer. $40 million. Moved from a national bank to a Black-owned credit union. Caption: "If they don't respect us, they don't deserve us. Bank Black." A retired Black NFL player in Houston did the same. $12 million. Posted the receipt. Tagged Denise. Tagged Heritage National. Said 3 words: "We see you." A Black cardiologist in Chicago. A Black-owned construction firm in Detroit. A group of Howard University alumni who organized a collective transfer of $6 million in 48 hours. Each one posted their receipts. Each one tagged Bank Black. Each one said the same thing in 100 different ways. Enough. Heritage National's customer service lines collapsed. Hold times hit 3 hours. Their social media team couldn't delete comments fast enough. Every post the bank made about anything, a holiday greeting, a savings rate promotion, was buried under thousands of replies. The same video, the same shoe, the same question. Is this how you treat your customers? But the wave wasn't just online. It was in the streets. It was in the churches. It was in the barber shops and beauty salons and community centers, where people had been talking about this kind of thing for years, quietly, privately, to each other, and were now saying it out loud. Derek published his investigation, not in the Chronicle. They were still paused behind legal threats. So he did something better. He went live. A live stream, 3 hours long. Derek sat at a desk with a camera, a microphone, and 2 years of evidence. He showed the documents on screen, the internal memo, the complaint records. The account data is broken down by race. He played Janelle's interview. He played Sandra Layton's press conference. He walked through the money trail, branch by branch, number by number. The live stream peaked at 340,000 concurrent viewers.
Clips were cut and shared millions of times within hours. Cable news picked it up, CNN, MS, NBC. Fox had a panel arguing about it for 45 minutes. Congressional offices started making phone calls. Heritage National's board of directors held an emergency session that evening, behind closed doors, but the cracks were already showing. 3 board members released a joint public statement calling for a full independent audit of all branch-level practices. 2 major institutional investors, pension funds managing billions, announced they were reviewing their position in Heritage National stock. The stock dropped another 4%. And Todd Whitmore? Finally, 48 hours too late, and only because the cameras forced their hand, Heritage National placed him on administrative leave. Not terminated, not fired, administrative leave. Full pay, full benefits. The same company that fired Janelle in 3 days gave Todd a paid vacation. But everyone knew the real reckoning was coming. The OCC investigation was moving fast. Congressional hearings were being scheduled, and Denise Caldwell Harper had one more piece of evidence that nobody, not Derek, not Sandra, not even Pat, knew about yet. She'd been saving it, waiting for the right room, the right cameras, the right moment. That moment was 72 hours away. The hearing room was packed. Standing room only. C-SPAN cameras lined the back wall. Press rows overflowed into the hallway. Every major network had a crew. Every major newspaper had a reporter. And somewhere in the back, a 17-year-old girl was live streaming the whole thing on her phone to 200,000 viewers. Denise sat at the witness table. Same linen blazer she wore to the bank, same white tee, same scratched gold watch. She didn't dress up. She didn't dress down. She showed up exactly as herself. Deliberate. Unmistakable. At a separate table sat Russell Avery and Heritage National's legal team. 4 lawyers in matching charcoal suits. Russell looked like he hadn't slept in a week. Behind them, technically a spectator, technically nobody, sat Todd Whitmore. He'd been subpoenaed. He had his own lawyer now, a young guy who kept whispering in his ear. Todd's face was the color of old paper. The committee chair opened the session. Introductions, procedural language. The room was restless. Everyone knew why they were here. Then Denise was called to speak. She didn't use notes. She didn't read from a script. She looked at the committee, 7 members, 4 men, 3 women, and spoke the way she always spoke. Clear, steady, like every word had been measured twice before it left her mouth. In 1971, my grandmother Ruth Caldwell walked into Heritage National Bank on Ridgemont Avenue and asked to open a savings account. She was a housekeeper. She worked 2 jobs. She had $312 in cash, money she had saved over 18 months. They turned her away. The branch manager told her they were not accepting her kind of deposits. Denise paused. The hearing room was silent. 53 years later, I walked into the same bank. Same address, same building. I had a certified check for $10 million. And the branch manager wiped it on his shoe and called me a black African cow. She let that sit. Nobody moved. But this hearing isn't about one check, and it isn't about one manager. It's about one system. She turned to the screen behind her. Pat advanced the slides. Data filled the wall. Derek's numbers, Sandra's reports, Janelle's emails, every receipt, every complaint, every memo, time-stamped, sourced, and projected 10 feet tall for the cameras and the country to see.
Denise walked through it all. The 3.4 times disparity in deposit flagging, the buried complaints, the retaliatory firings, the 2022 memo, the money trail, branch by branch, year by year, name by name. The committee members stopped looking at their papers. Their aides stopped typing. Everyone in that room was watching one woman dismantle an institution with nothing but facts. Then Denise said, "I have one more piece of evidence. It has not been published. It has not been shared. The committee is seeing it for the first time." She nodded to Pat. Pat pressed play. The audio was from Pat's phone, recorded in the lobby, after Todd wiped the check, after the slur, after Denise sat in silence and watched. There was a moment, captured in the background under the hum of the lobby, where Todd turned to Darnell, the security guard, and said something he thought nobody could hear. 6 words, quiet, almost muttered. But Pat's phone was 3 feet away, and the microphone caught every syllable. People like her don't have that. The hearing room went dead. Not quiet, dead. The kind of silence that has weight. Todd's face turned gray. His lawyer stopped whispering. Russell Avery put his head in his hands. The committee chair asked Russell if he wished to respond. Russell stood. He didn't look at his lawyers. He didn't look at his notes. He looked at Denise.
Ms. Caldwell Harper. On behalf of Heritage National Bank, I want to say what should have been said in that lobby. We failed you. Todd Whitmore's employment is terminated, effective immediately. We are commissioning a full independent audit of every branch, every complaint, every loan decision in our system. And we are establishing a $50 million community reinvestment fund, independently administered, to begin repairing the damage our institution has caused.
He paused. The cameras held on his face.
Your grandmother deserved better in 1971. You deserved better last month. Your community deserves better today.
Denise didn't nod, didn't smile. She looked at Russell the way you look at someone who finally said the right thing, but 53 years too late. The gallery erupted, the live stream comments exploded, and somewhere in the back row, Janelle Washington wiped her eyes and held her phone a little tighter.
But Denise wasn't finished. Because the Caldwell Community Trust had just received its first outside donation that morning, and the name on the check was one that nobody in that room saw coming. Here's how it ended, and here's how it began again. Todd Whitmore was terminated. Not suspended, not reassigned, terminated. The OCC opened a formal individual investigation into his conduct. All 6 previously buried complaints were reopened. His vigilant risk management was reclassified as what it always was, a pattern of racial discrimination documented across 4 years and exposed in 4 minutes of lobby footage. Heritage National Bank was fined $12 million. The independent audit Russell Avery promised began within 2 weeks. Within 2 months, 3 senior regional managers, the ones who had signed off on dismissing every complaint, who had praised Todd's numbers, who had approved the memo about client presentation, quietly resigned. No press conference, no statement, just gone.
Sandra Layton, the compliance officer who told the truth and got fired for it, was hired by the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau as a senior consultant on institutional discrimination. The reports Heritage National ignored became the foundation of new federal guidelines. And Janelle Washington? Rehired. Back pay for every missed check. A promotion to Senior Client Services Manager. And a written apology. Not from corporate communications. Not from legal.
but from Russell Avery personally, hand-signed, delivered to her door. Janelle framed it, not because she forgave them, because she wanted her daughter to see it, to know that telling the truth costs something, but silence costs more. The Caldwell Community Trust was fully funded within 60 days, $25 million. First loans dispersed within 90 days. The charter carried one name at the top, Ruth Caldwell, the grandmother who was turned away, the woman who kept that rejection letter in a shoebox until the day she died. On a Tuesday morning, 3 months after the hearing, Denise walked into First Unity Savings Bank. Small, black-owned, 2 tellers, 1 lobby, no marble floors, no fluorescent lights. She handed the teller a check. $10 million. The teller looked at the check, looked at Denise, and smiled. "Welcome, Miss Caldwell Harper. We've been expecting you." Denise smiled back, the first real smile of this entire story. But this isn't the end. Not quite. 3 months later, Denise received a phone call. A school principal in Jackson, Mississippi, a 14-year-old black girl's college savings account had been frozen by a national bank. The reason listed on the hold? Suspicious activity. The activity? Birthday deposits from her grandmother. $10, $20, $50, every year since the girl was born. Suspicious. Denise picked up the phone.